Hey guys, so this is gonna be a little bit less polished than my normal videos are because I am still phone based, and so I'm literally having to hold the camera. But next week I should have my new laptop and things will go back to being better quality. So I thought today we'd talk a little bit about what you should be doing to prepare for university. We're almost in the middle of July, and most of you guys are going to be starting in August. So that means you're starting to really have to gear up for college. Those of you who are in college, I mean, these are things to keep in mind, though they're less important because you've already established yourself at the school. But this is really for people who are starting at a new school, whether it be undergrad or grad school, and just keep in mind for the future. So definitely you should have contacted your teacher by now. If you haven't, that's you stop watching this video and go do that. You definitely need to be in contact with them and figuring out what they're expecting, the kinds of books that they're going to need you to buy, whether they want you to start on rep, what rep they want you to start on, everything like that. If you aren't in contact with your teacher by next week, you are doing something wrong, quite honestly. And I know that's a little scary and it's a little end of the worldy, but it's really, really important that you keep in contact with your teacher and that you start figuring out what your expectations are. And also, they need to know that you're serious about this. The person who just shows up on the first day and has never spoken to them is gonna already be at a disadvantage. That's also really important because, they're usually choosing your placement in ensembles, and if they haven't heard from you, chances are they're not going to put you very high. Another thing related to that is make sure that if the ensemble placement excerpts are out, you have them and you've started practicing them. If they aren't, then that's a different story, but keep an eye out on it, and the minute you get them, start practicing them. Being prepared for those things is the only way to do well, especially since you're usually preparing 5 to 6 excerpts that you may or may not have learned before in a month and a half, and that's not a lot of time. So make sure you get them as soon as possible. If you have to, email your teacher and ask them about it if you haven't heard anything or have no ETA when they're going to come out. Sometimes they only give you excerpts a month beforehand, and sometimes they give you a week beforehand. It really depends on the school. But that's something you can ask your teacher if you haven't gotten them yet. If you find out that they have been out and you don't have access to them, again, email your teacher. Your teacher is your lifeline. If you're going into grad school, it's really, really important that you start thinking about the entrance exams. I know it's scary and you have to think about things that you haven't had to think about in a really long time, but those entrance exams are really, really important, and they can save you a lot of money if you pass them, because review courses are a pain. I'm going to make a whole nother video about this probably next week, about how to study for them and what you should be thinking about, but you should be thinking about those. It's really, really important. And again, you don't want to waste your tuition on things that you technically already learned. You want to be using that money for classes that are important, and especially since in grad school you pay per credit, it's really, really important. If you're an undergrad, don't worry about that. Those tests are not, they're at least 4 years off for you. If you're an undergrad, you'll probably have more placement tests for theory, not necessarily, but that's the most you'll have. You won't be worried about that. And people always ask me, what should I be practicing? What should I be doing? Just practice. Do a lot of technique. If your teacher hasn't given you any repertoire to start working on, then pick something you want to work on and start working towards it. Maybe start thinking about, especially if you're in a master's degree, your first recital. If you're an undergrad, that's a different story, and I would not do that. But pick a piece that you want to work on that you think is at your level and start working on it. They might change your rep later on, or once you get there, but at least have some idea of what you want to work on. And I think the last thing is start reflecting on your playing and be really critical, self-critical. As chances are you're going to come into your first lesson and your teacher's going to go, what do you think you need to work on? And ask you to give a self-evaluation, because it shows a lot of who you are as a player if you can talk about your playing critically already. So reflect on yourself. Is your technique weak? Is your technique very strong but your musicality relatively weak? Do you have a certain style that you avoid? For me, I've always talked about focus and making sure I have the focus through a full recital, and also Baroque, because clearly I'm a contemporary specialist, that's what I'm very strong at, but being a well-rounded player is also really important, and that's one of the weaknesses I have. So whenever I went into a lesson where someone asked me about that, that's what I said, and also had some kind of an idea of what to move forward from. I think the best thing you can do going into your first lesson is have kind of an idea of what you'd like to work on, and then you can allow your teacher to add on to that and modify it and maybe just do what you want, but chances are they're going to find about a million other things that they want to do. But at least then you have a clear goal for the first week, if anything. That's kind of a quick rundown. I can always talk about this more in depth if you want to know. Send me a message. Hopefully next week I will not be holding a phone and I will actually have a laptop again. And I will see you guys then.